A significant group of late Cretaceous dinosaurs that perished together have been discovered on lands managed by the Bureau of Land Management, North Central Montana District.
So all this is bone.
That's all bone.
And all this white, these cross sections, these are all bones. Just hundreds and hundreds of bones sticking out. My initial feeling for this site is that these skeletons are not too disturbed, so they were probably transported in a flood, or maybe they died in situ, but a group all died together. So it was a very bad day for these duckbills. But duckbills, and many dinosaurs in fact, may have lived as age cohorts. So most of the duckbill remains that we get here are actually not fully grown. So this may have been like a non-breeding herd, a cohort of maybe 3 years old, and then you would have had like the breeders, which would have lived somewhere else. The idea for this site is to do a taphonomic study. Come and measure all the bones. Are the bones abraded? Have they been transported in a river? Or are they actually quite pristine? Are the skeletons mostly articulated or partially articulated, or are they all pulled apart? Mostly they seem to be at least closely associated, if not partly articulated. There's strings of vertebrae, there's articulated bits of legs. One of the blocks down there has a juvenile skull that's fallen apart. There's a partially articulated skull just in the block over there. This is what we'd call a taphonomic study. So how did these bones get here? Did they accumulate over many years? Or is it just one massive flood, let's say, that accumulated all these animals here? Maybe it was a watering hole and they all came here and died of thirst, that sort of thing. Those are the sorts of scenarios that you start to think about when you find a massive bone bed like this. Given that it's in a channel deposit, I suspect it's mass death from a flood or something like that. When you actually go in and measure all these bones, you can see, were they all the same age? Were they all the same species? If they're different ages, different species,
well, then they're probably not travelling in a group. But these are the sorts of questions that you're looking to test by looking at this material. The hypothesis that I would support right now would
be that this was a group of animals travelling together that suffered some kind of catastrophe.
So most of the sandstone concretions that you can see here are ancient river channels. You can even see some of the little ripples preserved in cross-section. So right here, this is the ripple surface.
A tyrannosaur that may have met a watery end has also been found in the North Central Montana District.
This is one of the sites that we applied for an excavation permit for this year. And it's got a nice tyrannosaur.
So this specimen is mostly articulated, it's mostly together. Preservation of the bones is beautiful, there's very fine details preserved, and even the most fragile bones are intact. The belly ribs have moved just slightly, but not too much. We've got this beautiful wishbone preserved as well, very, very good. It's looking very, very promising. It is one of a number of tyrannosaurs that we've found in this area. This is the middle-sized one, so we're hoping that if we can get a couple more of these specimens, we can actually start adding to our knowledge of tyrannosaur growth, addressing tyrannosaur growth as a whole. If you think about today, there are lots of different kinds of dogs like wolves and coyotes, but they're all the dog family, the canids. Tyrannosaurs are a bit like that. Tyrannosaur means the group as a whole. There are a number of different species of tyrannosaurs, and we might expect them to be slightly different in terms of growth, but they're all tyrannosaurs as a group.
Tyrannosaurus rex is the most famous member of the Tyrannosauridae, so that's a family of dinosaurs. They have very big heads, they have little two-fingered arms, big bruisers that lived at the end of the Cretaceous period in North America and Asia. There's other famous taxa like Tarbosaurus from Mongolia, Daspletosaurus and Gorgosaurus and Albertosaurus from southern Alberta, and a few of the more recently described forms. Now, part of what we do is we look at change through time. So Tyrannosaurus was actually the largest and the last of the tyrannosaurs. Prior to that, there were other species, some of which may have been ancestral to T-Rex. So maybe this, whatever genus or species this is, maybe this is the ancestor to the species Tyrannosaurus rex. As you find more specimens, you can start to code them and do the kinds of analyses that can tell you that kind of thing. Especially as we understand their growth more as well, that kind of thing. So this is us filling in another little gap, another little bit of detail in the history of that group. There was a really cool bit of experiment work that was done about 5 years ago and presented. And what they showed is that they used chickens and a few other birds, I think, and they put them in water. And when they're in water, the water itself supports the weight of the animal. And so these great big heavy animals have a long tail sticking out in the back end, and then have the neck and a big head sticking out the front end. And so there's a natural tension in the tendons, the ligaments that hold them in place, that when they go in water and the weight of the animal is borne by the water, the tension in those ligaments causes the ligaments to basically curl up like this. So they chuck these freshly dead chickens into water and their necks just went like this. So it matched exactly what we see in these bipedal dinosaurs.
So that's the preferred hypothesis currently as to why we find these bipedal dinosaurs sort of curled up in this opistotonic posture. We don't know how they fell into the river, or how they came to be in there. Maybe they drowned in the water itself, or maybe they just died and the carcass was swept up in a flood, something like that. We don't know that yet, but what happens to it once it enters the water, we have a pretty good idea.
This doesn't show indications of it being a channel. It's got lots of organic. You can see the little black stripes at the same level as the bone. So it's quiet water deposition, so this is probably an oxbow lake or a little offshoot of the main river, so the carcass sort of washed into that, and then it was buried by a thicker layer of sand over the top, so there would have been a flood and it would have burst through and, like I say, crevasse splay, and then just covered it up with that fine layer of sand.
The specimen will be on display in Badlands Dinosaur Museum in Dickinson, North Dakota.
It should be a quite spectacular specimen.